What's going on, everybody? Josh Engleman for Awesemo.com, and I am back for FanDuel's single game contest between the Baltimore Ravens and the Kansas City Chiefs. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you know when this and all of our other content goes live. Follow me on Twitter at Josh Engleman so you can get updates to these sims as we get closer to lock. And let me know in the comments section, who are your favorite MVP options and flex options for tonight's game? Baltimore enters 3.5 point favorites right now, which kind of surprised me, but we'll get to that later. 130.3 fantasy points is the average score. 54 total points for the game is the line. We're averaging 2.4 Kansas City Chiefs, 2.6 Baltimore Ravens, and $58,500 in salary for tonight's contest. I can't wait to talk about it. We don't have ownership yet, so this is sort of a more holistic view of the slate. Let's start with the MVPs. Big surprise here at MVP. Lamar Jackson and Pat Mahomes, the two best options. They make up the MVP spot 60% of the time. They're clearly the two best guys. They have monstrous projections compared to the rest of the slate. Lamar Jackson at 24, Pat Mahomes only at 20. Next closest guy, my third best MVP, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, 14.5. Edwards-Helaire gets there 11% of the time. I think the guys you want to pay closest attention to would be Edwards-Helaire and Mark Andrews. If they get oddly low ownership, I would like to go to those guys in larger field GPPs, but full stop. Lamar and Mahomes are the two best MVP options. I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. They are clearly the two best fantasy options. They will be in the MVP spot more often than not. That doesn't necessarily mean you should be using them aggressively. You need to pay close attention to ownership when it is released. You don't want to just compete with everybody else. So if Lamar happens to be well north of 36% ownership, or if Pat Mahomes is well north of 25, fade that guy. It's really that easy. You don't want to have to compete with too many people. And in this case, there's going to be a lot of people on Lamar and Mahomes. Pay super close attention to ownership. Next up at the flex, we're going to start with Clyde Edwards-Helaire and Marquise Brown, who are the two top flex options. You need to save some salary if you're going to Jackson and or Mahomes. Edwards-Helaire is 12.5 or Marquise Brown is 10.5. Both guys show up almost 40% of the time in the flex, both clearly the top two numbers. Or you go all the way down to Miles Boykin at 7K. He's projected for 7.3 fantasy points. That puts him in the flex a lot. So much of that has to do with Lamar and Mahomes being super expensive. So Miles Boykin is my preferred spend down option. There's one piece I do want to touch on. You can clearly see Lamar and Mahomes with lower flex numbers. One, it's assuming that one of those guys are probably in the MVP and it gets kind of expensive. Two, in the optimals that I generated, 14% of the time, Lamar and Mahomes were both in that lineup. In those cases, you absolutely need to get your low dollar guys right. So if you are trying to play Lamar and Mahomes together in a lineup, one at MVP, one at flex, you need to figure out who out of Hardman, Boykin, Demarcus Robinson, Nick Boyle at 5K. One of those guys are going to become really important because you'll need to save some salary. So I'm not entirely sure that's going to be the best option. I expect the ownership of Jackson and Mahomes in the aggregate to be higher than the odds of both of them finishing in the optimal lineup. So try to be aware if you're getting lineups with both Jackson and Mahomes. I like loading up more on the Edwards-Helaire, Andrews, Brown, Ingram, plus Boykin combinations. Alrighty, when it comes to fades in this game, I'm really not all that comfortable. There are so many weapons, both on the Kansas City side and the Baltimore side, that it gets a little dicey. Ownership will play the biggest role in fades, but for right now, I don't think that paying 13.5 for Tyreek Hill, particularly in the MVP spot, is a good allocation of resources. I think his salary is too close to Mahomes and Jackson. You don't get enough separation for what you really get in the separation in fantasy points. He's fine at the flex. I think it's just, again, easier to go to someone like Travis Kelce, $500 cheaper. Edwards-Helaire, Andrews, Brown, Ingram, all of those guys are a bit more efficient to get to than Tyreek Hill and don't have all that different of a projection. Other guy that I definitely don't want, at least as of right now, $9,500 J.K. Dobbins has a relatively minimal projection for me. Tiny odds of being the MVP, only a 14% chance of being in the flex spot. I'd rather get to one or both of the kickers. Sammy Watkins is there, Willie Snead is there, all of these guys showing up in the optimal lineup more often than Dobbins. So I'd like to be little light on Tyreek Hill unless his ownership is next to nothing. I fully expect to fade J.K. Dobbins clear across the board. And that will do it. Those are my top plays at the MVP and flex spot for FanDuel's single game slate between the Ravens and the Chiefs. One last time, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, follow me on Twitter for updates at Josh Engleman, and let me know in the comment section, who's your favorite MVP? Is it Lamar? Is it Mahomes? Or do you have a guy that you want to go off the board for? I'll have another DraftKings video. Maybe we could put a link up here. I think I could learn how to do that. Link up here to the DraftKings video. Good luck tonight. I'll talk to you guys again in this style video on Thursday.